Hey there, welcome to Closing Information Sheet Training 101. First thing we're going to do is save the closing information sheet to our favorites. I've already got mine saved to favorites, but if you click this little star right here and you click done, it will add it to your favorites. And then it will be in the top of your screen up here when you go to open a new tab. It just makes it super easy access. So the first thing we're going to do is start with the name of the agent. So that would be your name, or if you have an assistant filling it out, it would still be your name. So agent's name right there, the address of the dot loop file. So this just helps the backend staff know where they're going to go in case you forget to add them to dot loop. So we're just going to say 3 Highway 51B, Colita, and Weber is going to be the .loop file name. Do we represent the seller? Yes, we do. How did we, where did the seller come from, the lead? Is it from your SOI or did the team give it to you? Did Thomas give you that lead and help you get the listing? Was it a voicemail drop, Facebook ad, or is it just somebody that you know? Did you charge a transaction fee? This would be found on the listing agreement if you did. Typically, it's somewhere around $250. Honestly, it can be anywhere from $100 to $350. So if you did charge that, that's where it would go right there. Do you represent the buyer? Yes or no? If you don't represent the buyer and the answer to that is no, this next one is automatically NA. If this was yes, then you would select which of these the buyer lead came from. And also on your buyer broker agreement, did you indicate to the buyer that you were going to charge them a transaction fee? And if so, how much is that? And that would go right there. Is this vacant land or residential? Does it have a house on it, or is it just strictly vacant land? If it's either way, how many acres is there? You're going to plug that in right there. What type of property is it? Is it cropland? Is it a ranch? Is it for recreational, or is it residential, commercial? We're just going to say recreational. Is the tract being split off of a larger tract? If so, which tract is conveying? This would be off of a multi-tract listing that, say there was 6 tracts available on this particular listing, then you would say this was tract 5 or tract 2, whichever tract it is that's conveying off of a larger group of tracts is what you're going to put right there. If you don't have that, then you're just going to put NA. Do you have an exhibit A outlining your tract in .loop? So if it's a multi-tract listing like tract 2, tract 5, you're definitely going to want an exhibit A or a map with the initials of the seller and the buyer, indicating that they acknowledge that they understand which tract is actually conveying on this contract. So do you have that? Yes or no? Is a lot split approval required by the county? Typically not, unless it's a split where it's a tract that's part of a larger tract. So if that would be the case, then you would click yes, but in this case, it's not. You're going to put your MLS number right there. To represent the seller, please provide the seller's name. Typically, this information would already be in Brivity, but go ahead and give that detailed information. You're going to want a phone number, and you're going to want an email address because they're going to communicate both ways with them on the back end. So please make sure you're putting that information, even if they're already in Brivity, just go ahead and provide it again because sometimes the phone number might have changed from the time they sign the listing agreement until the time that the property goes under contract. So just so the back end can verify accurate information, if you'll just please include all that information. Is the seller married? Yes or no? If you don't know, you'll put NA and the back end will ask, but that is important in the state of Oklahoma. It takes 1 to buy and 2 to sell. So if the seller is married, then their spouse will be required to be at closing and sign paperwork that acknowledges that they're aware that their spouse is selling this property. If you represent the buyer, you're going to do the same thing, include all their information, name, phone number, and email address. If you don't, you're just going to put NA. Is the buyer married? If you don't represent the buyer, you're just going to put NA. What's the other agent's information right here? phone number, email address. And then now we're getting to the good stuff. How are you going to get paid? What is the listing side commission percentage? So if you have a 7% total and you agreed that the cooperating broker compensation was 3%, then the listing side would be 4% and the buyer side would be 3%. That's pretty important for the back end to know, even if you don't represent the buyer, because they're double checking those settlement statements that are coming from the closing company before they send those out, and they can make sure that you're accurately getting your 4% and the buyer's side is getting 3%. We have had instances where it was supposed to be a 4.5 and a 2.5, and the buyer's side was trying to get the full 3. So super important that you include that information, even if you don't represent one side or the other. When do your inspections start? So you're just going to go to your contract and put your inspection start date. This is important because the back end is going to calendar these dates for you. When did the inspections start? When do they end? This is what they use to calendar those dates with, and it's a courtesy for you as a reminder to let you know, hey, inspections end for this contract today. So that way you can make sure if there's anything that needs to be done before that inspection period closes, that you get it taken care of before that ends. What's the contract close date? When are we going to close this? What does the contract say? You're just going to go in and put that on there. This is super important that that's accurate also, because the back end uses that not only for the starred note and brevity, but also they calendar that for you as well as putting it on their calendar and marking it in their paper calendars that they're keeping track of all the closings in. So want to make sure that's accurate. If it's a residential, is it an as-is residential? Yes or no? In this case, it's vacant land, so it'd be no. Did the buyer want to do inspections? We don't know because we don't represent the buyer in this case. So that would be something the back end would reach out to the buyer's agent and find out for you. If you do know that, then you can say yes or no. We don't represent the buyer, so the buyer's acknowledgement of opportunity to obtain inspections wouldn't be in our loop, so we would say no. But if you represent the buyer, then you would want to answer that question accurately. Where did you leave off with the earnest money? Even if you don't represent the buyer, you're going to want to tell the back end where the earnest money is going, where it's at. So $1,000 to American Abstract. That way they know to be reaching out to Christina at American Abstract, like, hey, have you received this earnest money yet? Seller's title company contact information. A lot of times it is American Abstract. You just want to make sure that if it's not American Abstract, that you include the closer's name and phone number, who you're working with, so it gives the back end the opportunity to have that information to reach out to them, get the contract sent correctly. Important that we have that information, email and phone number. The buyer's title company, usually that is where the earnest money is going to go, but not always. So if you don't represent the buyer and you don't know their title company, you would put something like, please contact buyer's agent to obtain that information. So the back end knows that's something that they need to do on their end, get that information. Also, if we don't represent the buyer, we're not going to have that lender information unless we have a letter of pre-approval. So you're going to want to make sure that you also tell them, contact the buyer's agent to obtain the information. That way they know to be asking for that as well, because when the closers are making those phone calls, they're asking those questions, and this just reminds them, hey, don't forget to ask about that. Do we need to order a survey? Yes, we do. Most of the time, the seller pays for the survey. So in this case, we represent the seller. Yes, we're going to pay for the survey, and our client is going to pay for the survey. Do we have tax records in .loop? Yes, we do. Or if it's in OneDrive. If not, then you need to really go to your MapRight and provide them the township section and range. If you don't know how to do that, you go right over here to MapRight and you come up here to layers and you click TRS, and then you just back out of there, and it's going to tell us, okay, our property is located in Township 21 North, Range 13 East, section 1. If you've already put the property on MLS, you're already going to have that information. But if you represent the buyer only, then that may be something you want to put in here in case it's a buyer only transaction and your buyer is wanting to pay for a survey. So just important that you continue to answer all the questions thoroughly, because the more information you give in your closing information sheet, the better information the back end has to work off of. Do you have a preference on a surveyor? It's okay to ask for 2 quotes. Can you please provide a quote from King and Ray? That way we can provide our buyer with options. Typically, some surveyors are faster than the others, but they might be a little more expensive, and it really is just kind of the buyer and the seller's preference. Is the seller paying the buyer's closing costs? Most of the time, no, but definitely check the contract and make sure that you're getting that information accurately. Do minerals convey? Yes or no. Was this a referral? Yes or no. If it was a referral, are your documents with a W-9 in your .loop file? If it's not a referral, just click no and roll on. Right here, you would put the referring agent's name, and if there's not one, you're going to put NA. Did you add Kim and Samantha to the loop? Yes or no. Has a net to seller been completed? Yes, it has. If you represent the buyer, has a cost to buyer been completed? In this case, we don't represent the buyer, so we're just going to say no. There's no house, so all of our information on these next couple of questions is going to be no. Is the property located in a flood zone? If you don't know how to do that, you go to MapRight and you turn on your FEMA floodplain. And here you can see it's close, but it's definitely does not require a flood disclosure. So we're going to say no. It's not a condo. There's no property disclosures to fill out. No home warranty on this particular one. And we do have a wire fraud signed. And then next we're going to get to the tags for Christmas. Like, how much of a Christmas present do you want them to get? Is it small? Is it a card only? Is it a large one because this is a big transaction? And we don't represent the buyer, so we're going to say none on this one. Are there any special instructions or any kind of special information that you want them to know? If you are showing a hunting property and it's during hunting season, you might just let the surveyors know, hey, call us and let us know so we can let the buyer and seller know somebody's going to be out there at that time. In case they do have hunters out there, they're going to know to expect somebody. Anything you want to tell us about the property that makes it special? Is there high wires? Is there already a well on there? What about the property does the back end need to know? And any additional information that you want to add about that. If you want to say something about your seller is super easy to work with. First texting, second type. Any information like that you want to include that you think the back end should know. They'll create a starred note with that information just to let them know. If your property is tied up in a probate court and the sale is going to be pending probate approval or something of that nature, just disclose all that information that you have so there's not any surprises to the ladies on the back end. As far as closing information sheets go, if you have any questions about filling these out, if you need help, want to know who your closer is going to be ahead of time, anything like that, just make sure you're reaching out to Kim with those questions. Once you've finished your form, you're going to click submit, and that will automatically go to the support email, and Megan will upload your closing information sheet into your file in OneDrive. Kim will assign it to the closer, and then the back end will get started getting that file set up in Brevity and getting those contracts to the title companies. Again, if you have any questions at all, reach out to Kim for help. Thanks so much. Have a great afternoon.